Hello. I think the Christian nationalism has gotten many of us a little confused about Christianity because most of us have an idea that Christianity is teaching to be kind and to love, and yet the very people who are telling us that we're a Christian nation seem to be exhibiting sometimes quite uncaring and even cruel policies, such as deporting people or putting people into these huge camps where the conditions are very bad and quite cruel. So what's going on here? So for this, I want to actually um, look at not just Christianity itself, although that is obviously, you know, very relevant. And I did actually already talk a little bit about how Christianity deviates from Jesus's teaching in many ways. Um, but I also want to talk today about people, about spiritual growth, because this is actually a whole dimension that we often don't talk about, but it really helps us to clarify what's going on. So I'm going to use the analysis of Scott Peck. He was a Christian and a psychologist. He died, I think, early 2000s. But he wrote about the stages of spiritual growth, and he essentially said there were four stages. The first stage he called chaotic, antisocial. The second stage he called formal, or I don't remember what he called it, but maybe legalistic. The third stage is skeptical, questioning. And then the fourth stage is like mystical, communal. So I guess it's important to note that he's not the only person who's come up with stages very similar to this. So that's sort of helpful to know. It's not just his personal analysis that we have to just accept. So he came up with, questions, first of all, when he said that when he was 14 years old, he started to show some interest in Christianity. He said he really went to check out the girls, but he went to a church nearby, and the pastor there was a very famous preacher. In fact, he said it was one of the most famous preachers in America. But he said that he had no problem seeing that this man was a fraud. So then he went to another church, another nearby church, and the preacher there, he said, was much less famous and well known. But he felt that this preacher was light years ahead of him in his spirituality. So he was confused, because here you have two famous preachers in Christian churches preaching, and they seem to him to be totally different. So, however, so this stayed with him, this question of what's going on here. So then he came up with these four stages, and the first stage actually is when your life, you really don't have any beliefs. You don't have any principles. You may say you're a Christian, but if you say you're a Christian, you're doing it mostly for the purpose of self-benefit. Maybe to, how to be seen in other people's eyes, how to get on in your career, and so on. But really, you're totally unprincipled and not able to care for other people. And this so Scott Peck says that maybe about 20% of adults are in this stage and probably stay in that stage most of their life or all of their life. And also little children. But of course, children hopefully will grow out of that, most of them. So, but he says that even though life can be very chaotic, sometimes they can be very disciplined in their search for, their own benefits. So these people can become great preachers, or they can become leaders, or even a president, he says. Okay, so we can understand that these people are basically focused on themselves, and even if they are Christian, it's a little questionable, even if they say they're Christian. Okay, so then stage 2 This is essentially when your whole life is ordered by your belief, right? So somehow you learn about Christianity, and you think of God as like the big daddy in the sky who will take care of you as long as you remember to pray or ask Jesus for help. You basically follow the rules so that you will be saved. And this has pulled you out of chaos. So you're no longer in a chaotic situation. Your life is stable because you follow the laws. Because you know that if you have faith and if you follow this path, then you will be saved. And that, I mean, as far as I can tell, I have no idea, but I can't see anything wrong with that. But the problem is that you are very rigid. So then if you look at somebody, you don't really have a problem with people in stage 1, but if you look at somebody in stage 3, they are very confronting. So I'll talk about stage 3 in a minute, but it means that you have a problem with people who don't adhere to the same beliefs as you. And you probably feel that it's your responsibility to reach out to them, to teach them about Christianity and so on. But you don't understand where they're coming from often. So you see everybody who doesn't believe the same way as you as, in a sense, sort of somebody who's lost and who needs saving. Okay? So then a lot of people will stay in this situation, and it's actually quite stable. And if you have, say, 2 good, stable, stage 2 Christians, they are usually very loving because Christianity tells you to be loving. And then you raise children who sort of internalize your Christianity, your beliefs. But at some point then, because they have this stable foundation, then they have a way to move to this 3rd stage, which is a stage of questioning and a stage of skepticism, a stage where you quite likely, for a while at least, then lose your Christian beliefs. But it doesn't mean that you've gone back to stage 1. Because people in stage 3 are often very loving people. They are usually searching for truth, right? They are often scientists. And most people in stage 3 will probably stay in stage 3 unless they have some sort of breakthrough into stage 4. But in stage 3, you live a good life. You actually want to serve people. You want to love people. You're not in any way just focused on yourself. You're usually a very good person, and you raise your children well, and you care about more than just your children and yourself. But you always want evidence, right? You want to see, you don't want to change your beliefs unless you have some sort of evidence and reason to do so. Okay, so what is stage 4? Stage 4 is like a more mystical person, somebody who's accepted that they may not know mystery. They may not have all the answers. They may not have evidence, but intuitively they know that everybody is loved, everybody is one, universal oneness, right? That they are very loving and universal type people, very patient, very kind, not judgmental. The most judgmental people would probably be the stage 2 because they judge everybody according to whether they are following the laws of God, right, the commandments. Okay, so stage 4 is probably not hugely overpopulated. My feeling is that stage 3 is the most common in this country, in America. But it's actually also true that every religion has these people belonging to each of these stages, right? So there are mystics in Hinduism, in Buddhism, in Islam. There are stage 3 people in all the different religions, although often stage 3 people don't really adhere to a religion. So, what is that telling us about Christian nationalism? Well, I don't think a stage 4 person would think that we are a Christian nation, because they don't see Christianity in that way. They don't see Christianity as something that separates us from other religions or other nations and so on. So it would be a very minor detail if they did think of us as a Christian nation. Stage 3 people almost certainly don't, because they don't really believe in religion. They need a bit more evidence. So if the people who are pushing for us to be recognized as a Christian nation, maybe that's more the stage 2 people. Maybe if it is the stage 1 people, their motivation is different. Okay? So stage 2 people tend to be more fundamentalist, more like rigidly adhering to the words of the Bible and so on. So evangelicals, they're not necessarily fundamentalists, but there is some commonality that can lead evangelicals into fundamentalism. And I think actually a lot of the political stuff over the last decade or so has actually split the evangelical church quite a lot, because a lot of them are not fundamentalist. So there are definitely some stage 2 contributions to Christian nationalism, that they think that everybody should be following the commandments, nobody should be having an abortion. But also notice that this is not a very loving way to be, right? It is a way that you think is pleasing God, and it's loving in the sense that you are leading people to be saved. But making people follow the law, like, for instance, making abortions illegal, making people follow what you think is right, can have a lot of very nasty consequences for other people. And we can see that some of the women who've become pregnant and can't get medical care have actually died. Okay, so, but that's probably the good side of Christian nationalism, the stage 2 people. Because the other side is the stage 1 people. And these are the people who have no principles but are pretending that they are Christians. I'm not saying this about any one particular person, okay? I do believe that we can intuit or feel what's going on with a person. We can sort of feel whether they are a loving person or whether they are rigid or whether they are afraid, right? Stage 2 people are afraid of stage 3 people or stage 4 people, because they're afraid that the way that these people are living is threatening their adherence to the truth, threatening the actual laws. So that is difficult for them. Stage 1 people are just using it. They're just using Christian nationalism. They're just using Christianity. In fact, they don't believe in God. They don't believe in anything, probably. Right? A stage 1 person is in chaos. So they are using chaos to bring them to advance their careers. They're using their Christianity to advance their careers, or to impose something on the rest of humanity that is to their own benefit. Okay, so again, I don't want to say that everybody who's in government right now is stage 1 or even stage 2. I'm sure there are very sincere people who don't see a way to work with the current situation other than going along with it. But then there are people who have seen a way to work, which is to challenge it. Okay, so they paid the price. They lost their positions, but I'm sure to them they feel very glad that they decided to challenge what they saw as wrong, because they're the hope for the rest of the people, for the rest of us. Now, there are some people who I think are very sincere in their Christianity. Mike Pence, I think he's a sincere Christian. And obviously, though, he thought that his duty was to support the president no matter what. But when it came down to it, he realized that supporting the Constitution was higher, right? So I think he's like a sincere Christian. I certainly don't think he's the only one. I don't want to mention names, but I think this really sort of explains this idea that Christianity can mean very different things according to your level of spiritual growth. So look at people. Are they using it for their own ends, for their own purposes, to try to control the rest of us, to try to enhance their career, to try to make money, if they are their stage one? Are they using it simply because they feel that it's their responsibility to teach us to follow the Bible for our own salvation and so on? That's stage 2 more. Stage 3 and stage 4, they're the ones, these people in these higher stages are the ones who can actually help the country right now. So I hope that this helps us to just understand where we're at and understand a bit more about Christian nationalism. And I'm going to talk more about the form of Christianity that is being given to us, but in another video. Okay, thank you.